So I'm unemployed now. Hey y'all, it's Emma, and yeah, I quit 2 jobs in 8 hours, so I guess this video is a story time. I guess I owe you a little explanation. Let's start back a little bit. So in late May, I moved to Los Angeles in order to pursue writing. I want to write for film or TV for a living. And since then, I've been talking to a lot of cool contacts who have told me essentially the way I want to go about getting into writing is I need to be a writer's PA. And what that means is essentially I'm an office assistant, and every time I went to apply for a job that was a writer's PA, it said I needed a year of assistant experience. And that fact is essentially what led this whole story to happen. Keep in mind, the retail job that I transferred from Southern Illinois to Los Angeles was giving me less and less hours. And that's really common in retail. The big times to work in retail are like the holiday season and then right around summer, like back to school. And so this is kind of a dead zone for retail, which meant me and everyone else who worked in the store were not getting enough hours. I was getting around 10 to 12 hours a week, and last month I had just enough money to pay my rent and nothing else. So essentially I've been living off savings, and I have enough, keep that in mind. I have enough savings, but the retail job just wasn't working out. So like I said, I was looking for an assistant position or somewhere in an office. I was thinking receptionist or assistant to anyone, really. And my lack of clarity in the job hunt is really one of my big downfalls in this story. So my roommate, who I am so grateful for, told me that one of her clients was actually looking for an assistant. And he called me late at night, and I was so excited about the job opportunity that I really jumped on it without thinking too much about it. I heard money, and it's like these dollar signs went off in my head. I didn't really think of what the job would entail, I just knew I needed money. He told me vaguely on the phone, but I wasn't super paying attention. Admittedly, that's my fault, but what the job ended up being was a sales job, fairly similar to what I was doing in retail, except I was calling people on the phone for 8 hours every day. I was trying to get people to refinance their mortgages, and it was also a commission-based job, so the incentive was the harder you worked, the more you would get paid at the end of the month. And so when I started this job, I was still working my retail job because I had to put in my 2 weeks a little bit later. So for the first several days, I was working 4 to 8 at the retail job and then 9 to 6 at this assistant job. I was exhausted, working 13 hours a day. I can do for a while, but after a couple days, I passed out, slept for 12 hours straight. I was done. And while I was exhausted, I was having such a miserable time at my new job. I was happy to find I was pretty good at it. I was actually doing a lot better than I anticipated, but I hated every moment I was in that office. I've never had such an instantaneous dislike towards any place of work. But I told myself I would give it 2 weeks because I heard somewhere that after 2 weeks, your body kind of gets in a routine and you adapt to things a lot easier after that point. That tip works for like constructing new habits, exercise, stuff like that. And it's worked for me in the past, so I was hoping it would apply to this job. So after 2 weeks, I got my first paycheck. It was enough money to cover rent, but it wasn't worth it. I thought about that money and I was really happy to be able to pay rent at the end of the month. But I couldn't think about doing this job for the rest of the month, much less another day, really. And so I took that feeling into the weekend and spent all weekend thinking about how much I hated this job, and I actually started applying new jobs that weekend. So Monday morning came along and I worked my final retail shift. I worked 1 to 5 in the morning and said goodbye. I don't plan on going back to retail unless I really have to. So yay, I'm out of the retail game. So I would think that going into this other job would be easy, right? I hated retail so much, so why not sales? And I thought about that on the drive home, and I fell asleep and I woke up and I just thought about not even going into work. But I convinced myself to go to work, maybe thinking that my mind would change on the way there, and it really didn't. I got into work at 9 and worked until noon, and that's when I told my boss I just didn't think this was working out. It's really unlike me to quit a job. I'm able to push down a lot of stuff and work for something if I know it's going to benefit me. But it stopped feeling like this job was benefiting me really quickly. This job was so draining. I really didn't like what I was doing. I knew then I came out here to be a writer and I needed to give myself that opportunity. So when I talked to my boss at noon, I told him that. I just told him this wasn't working out. I just was miserable doing what I was doing. He said he was actually grateful because the turnover rate for this position has been really high and they've had people who just don't come back. I think it was really important that I was honest about how I was feeling with my boss because we'd had a really good relationship and I didn't want to break that, even though I knew that was a possibility when I was going to be quitting out of the blue. But that honesty and mutual respect we had developed for each other is something I value and is essentially what allowed me to walk away from the job at lunchtime. He was really, really understanding and I couldn't be more grateful. I had so much anxiety going up to quitting that day that his response was better than I could have anticipated. He actually told me that he wanted to be a sports journalist, but the money in sales was too much for him to pass up. And that really stuck with me. If I was willing to give up that amount of money, and it was more money than I can fathom, then I must really care about what I'm doing, or what I'm trying to do. So I walked away and he told me that if I ever need to come back, I'm totally welcome, which was thrilling and reassuring, but I don't think I'll be going back. So I ate lunch with my coworker for the last time and drove away and I went home and I have been unemployed for the past week. So now what? Do I regret what I did? Absolutely not. It feels like since for the first time coming to LA, I really am getting the chance to do what I want to do. I'm happy to not be connected to that retail job, which for me connects to so many miserable memories, and that sales job wasn't making me happy at all. It also made me realize how privileged I am to be able to step away from a job that I just didn't like. I was smart when I moved out here. I saved up all last year. I was working probably like 5 months without a day off. I saved and I made that savings account so I could make a choice like this. And I do have an alternate income. I do drive for Postmates fairly regularly actually. And by doing that, I was making a lot more money than I was at the retail job. So I'm doing okay. And I am putting out job applications and people are on the lookout for jobs for me. And to those people, I am so grateful. Thank you for keeping me in mind when it comes to anything really. So in summary, am I unemployed? Absolutely. And do I regret it? Not really. Since being unemployed this past week, I've actually been working on a lot of personal projects. I started a gaming channel, which you can check out if you want. I'm having so much fun experimenting with editing techniques and experimenting with new technology, and it's really bringing me a lot of joy. And I've also been working on videos for this channel behind the scenes. And if you want to know more about that, feel free to follow me on my socials. They're all linked on screen and linked below. But this whole experience has really taught me that I want to pursue what I love for a living. I understand that it's something I would have to work really hard at, and it's something I would need a little luck for, but it's something I'm willing to try for. I'm not the kind of person who can be satisfied with a job that pays really well. I've always lived frugally, and stuff really doesn't make me happy. So I'm pinching a lot of pennies and really learning how to budget my money, and these are skills that I need right now in order to survive, but they're skills I'll definitely value currently and way in the future. So I'm willing to fight for what I love, and I'm willing to sacrifice for it. And that is the best takeaway that I could have learned this past week. So thank you so much if you've made it to the end of this video. I really appreciate it knowing that someone is out there listening to what I have to say and to my stories, and I'll try to throw in some more of these personal videos every once in a while, maybe every other month. And I'll be getting back to the reviews and other random content starting on Friday. I hope you'll see me next time, guys.